Inside the pouch-like structure, actually the testis is present, and that pouch-like structure is called as the scrotum. Inside to the testis, what is there? There are 250 compartments which produces sperms, and those compartments are called as the testicular lobules. Mammary glands. So mammary glands also form a part of the female reproductive system. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to today's session on chapter 3 of 2nd PUC, that is human reproduction. I am Dr. Divya, biology faculty, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Mysore, Temple of Excellence. So we all know that humans are sexually reproductive organisms, right? Wherein we are viviparous, that is, we directly give birth to the young ones. So in this particular chapter, let us study in detail about the reproductive structures and how exactly reproduction occurs in a human being and the various steps that are involved in reproduction. In today's session, let us mainly concentrate on the male and the female reproductive system. So to begin with, let us start studying about the male reproductive system. So the male reproductive system is mainly located in the region of the pelvis, that is where the pelvic bone is present. Just below that is presence of the male reproductive system that is located in the pelvis region. And when we look at the male reproductive system, we can see a pair of testes. So it consists of a pair of testes. Along with that, there is presence of accessory ducts, glands and external genitalia. So if you can see here, it consists of a pair of testes, then the accessory glands that are there like the bulbourethral glands, then there is presence of the external genital structures such as the penis and the glans penis, the foreskin, all that. So all that comes under the male reproductive structure itself. And for fertilization, the main production, testis is the one that is very important because it is in the testis that the sperms are produced. So testes are situated outside the abdominal cavity. So most of the parts of the male reproductive system that is present in the pelvic region, they are inside the body of the male, but the testis is outside the body of the male. So it is situated just below the abdomen or the stomach area. So the testes are situated outside the abdominal cavity in a pouch-like structure called as scrotum. So it is very well safeguarded in a pouch-like structure which is called as scrotum. So can you see here the pouch-like structure that is there? Inside the pouch-like structure, actually the testis is present, and that pouch-like structure is called as the scrotum. So what is the function of the scrotum? Why should the testis be covered by the scrotum? So the testis, I told you, it is present outside the human body below the abdomen, right? So it is exposed outside. So that is why it needs extra protection, and that protection is actually provided by the scrotum. So the scrotum, it mainly helps in maintaining the temperature of the testis. So outside external temperature keeps on varying, but that external temperature should not affect the testis. So therefore, it helps in maintaining the temperature of the testis 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lower than the normal internal body temperature. And not just that, the scrotum is also important because, as I told you, it helps in maintaining the body temperature. That is especially the temperature of the testis, and the temperature of the testis should be maintained because of the production of the sperm, which is called as spermatogenesis. So if the sperms has to get produced properly, then the temperature should always be maintained of the testis, and that is facilitated or helped by the sac-like structure or the pouch-like structure which is called as the scrotum. Next, moving further, in adults, when we look at the shape of the testis, it is oval in shape. So testes are 2 in number, and those testes are oval in shape, and it has a length of about 4 to 5 centimeter, and the width of the testis is about 2 to 3 centimeter. And the testis is covered by a very thick covering or a dense covering, and each testis has about 250 compartments, which is called as the testicular lobule. So it has testicular lobules. So outside the scrotum is there, which forms a pouch. Inside the scrotum, what is there? Testis is there. Inside to the testis, what is there? There are 250 compartments which produces sperms, and those compartments are called as the testicular lobules. And each lobule, what is there in each lobule? Let us look into. So in each lobule, there is about 1 to 3 highly coiled seminiferous tubules, and it is in this seminiferous tubules that the sperms are produced. So if you can see here the diagram, you can see this is the diagram of the section of a testis, wherein you can find compartments, right? Like this, numerous compartments, or that is 250 compartments or lobules are present. Inside this 250 compartments or lobules, there is the presence of the seminiferous tubules, and it is in these seminiferous tubules that the sperms are produced, or the spermatogonia, the spermatozoa, all that are produced there. And each seminiferous tubule is covered towards the inside. What is there inside of the seminiferous tubule? Inside the seminiferous tubule, there are two important types of cells that are there, which are called as the male germ cells, that is nothing but the spermatogonia, and the Sertoli cells. So what did we learn here? The testis is covered by the scrotum. Inside the testis, there is presence of lobule-like structures which forms 250 compartments. These lobules, inside the lobules are present seminiferous tubules. In the seminiferous tubules, it consists of two types of cells, or it is covered by two layers of cells. As you can see, one is the spermatogonia and the other one is the Sertoli cells. So spermatogonia is the one that actually it is called as the male germ cells, which because they are the ones that will produce the sperms. So the male germ cells, these cells which are called as the spermatogonia, they undergo meiotic division and they form sperms, leading to the formation of sperms, whereas the Sertoli cells that are also there, they actually provide nutrition to the germ cells. So this is about the testis. So what is there inside the testis? What was the shape of the testis? All that we came to know now. And the region outside the seminiferous tubules. So outside the seminiferous tubules, there is some space that is present which is called as the interstitial space. And these interstitial spaces, if you can see here, these spaces that are there, they are called as the interstitial space. So where are these spaces present? They are present outside to the seminiferous tubules, right? Because this is the seminiferous tubules. And this seminiferous tubules is lined by two types of cells, which we have already learned. That is the male germ cells, or the spermatogonia, and the Sertoli cells. And outside to the seminiferous tubules, there is a space which is present, which is filled with cells called as the interstitial space, or the interstitial cells. And what is there in these interstitial space? The interstitial space contains lot of blood vessels, small blood vessels, and also it contains interstitial cells which are also called as the Leydig cells. And why are these Leydig cells important? Leydig cells are very, very important because Leydig cells which are present in the interstitial space which is present outside of the seminiferous tubules, they actually are the ones that secretes the hormone, that is the male hormone, which is called as the androgen. So Leydig cells, they help in the synthesis of the male testicular hormone, which is the male hormone, which is called as androgen. So next, moving on to the other parts of the male reproductive system. So we studied about the testis and completely what is outside the testis, what is it covered of, and when we take a section of the testis, what is exactly present inside the testis, all that we came to know. Now talking about the other parts of the male reproductive system. So it includes the male accessory duct. So what are there in the male accessory ducts? So in the male accessory ducts, there is presence of reed testis, there is presence of vasa efferentia, there is presence of epididymis and the vas deferens. So as you can see, there is presence of reed testis. If you remember in your first PUC also, you had learned this word reed when we talked about the kidney, right? So what is present? The reed testis is present. Then one more part, that is the epididymis is present. Then we have the vas deferens. So vas deferens is the one that forms a connectivity between, as you can see, it forms a connectivity between the testis. So this is the testis. So this part, this is the testis. So as you can see, it forms a connectivity between the testis up till the penis of the or the external genital part of the human or the penis, right? So therefore, the sperms usually travel through the vas deferens into the penis. So that, and also it also has vasa efferentia. So all these are the accessory organs that are present in the male reproductive structure. So the seminiferous tubules of the testis, it opens into the vasa efferentia through the reed testis as I have shown, and the vasa efferentia that leaves the testis and opens into the epididymis is located along the posterior surface of each of the testis. So you can see here the vasa efferentia is located posteriorly on the top of each of the testis. They are actually located. And the epididymis, it finally leads to the vas deferens, and that vas deferens, it actually continues towards the abdomen and it loops over the urinary bladder, entering into the genital, external genital area. So this is how the male reproductive system is arranged, or the different parts of the male reproductive system. So the vas deferens, the vas deferens receives a duct from the, or a tube from the seminal vesicle, and that it opens into the urethra as the ejaculatory duct. So because it is through the ejaculatory duct that the sperm comes out of the male body, and these ducts, they actually store and they transport the sperms from the testis to the outside through the urethra. So therefore, the urethra, it originates from the urinary bladder and then it extends through the penis, which is the external genital area, through an opening called as the urethral meatus. So much forms the part of the testis. So as you can see, we have the urethra, it extends. So if you can see here, the testis, from the testis there is presence of the vas deferens tube. That vas deferens tube enters into the abdominal area and then to the urethra. Through the urethra it reaches, which is a tube-like structure, it reaches into the penis or the external genital area of the male reproductive system, and then it comes out of the body. So that is how it actually functions. And the penis, it is the male external genitalia, as I told you, and this penis is made up of a special type of tissues that helps the penis in erection, and also it facilitates an insemination or the release of the sperms. And the enlarged end of this penis is called as the glans penis, and this glans penis is covered by a skin which is called as the foreskin. As you can see, the external area, it is called as the glans penis. So this glans penis is covered by a foreskin, and the penis forms the external male genital area. So the male accessory glands includes the paired seminal vesicles, it includes a prostrate gland, and it includes a paired bulbourethral gland. So apart from the other accessory glands that we studied, the accessory duct also includes the bulbourethral gland, the prostrate, then the seminal vesicle and all that. So this is about the structure of the male reproductive system. And the secretions of these glands, that is the bulbourethral glands, the prostrate gland and all that, they constitute the seminal plasma. And this seminal plasma, which is a fluid-like substance, it is rich in fructose, calcium, and also it is rich in certain enzymes. And the secretions of the bulbourethral glands, they also help in keeping the penis moist or keeping the penis greasy or lubricated. So they also help in the lubrication of the penis. So that is why each part of the male reproductive system is very important, because they participate in the process of reproduction here. So next, moving on to the female reproductive system. So the female reproductive system consists of a pair of ovaries is present, and along with that there is presence of a pair of oviduct, which is a tube-like structure, then uterus, the cervix, vagina, and the external genitalia, which is located in the pelvic region. And these parts of the female reproductive system, along with the pair of the mammary glands. So mammary glands also form a part of the female reproductive system, because they are the ones that secrete milk and help in the process of lactation after a child's birth. So that is why these are the mammary glands, are the integrated structural and functionally supportive organ that helps in the process of ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth, and child care. So therefore, the mammary glands are also included under the female reproductive system. So as you can see here, the female reproductive system is mainly formed with a pair of ovaries. So in the next picture, we can look into it. And along with that, it has the uterus. And then there is presence of the vagina, the rectum, the cervix. All these forms the parts of the female reproductive system. So let us study about these in detail. So first, talking about the ovaries. So ovaries are the ones that actually produces the eggs that are needed for the fertilization of the sperm, and therefore for the zygote development and for the embryo formation. So therefore, ovaries are the primary or the most important female sex organs that produce the female gametes, which are the ovum, or you can also call it as the egg. And it also produces several steroidal hormones, such as, which are called as the ovarian hormones. And the ovaries are located one on each side of the lower abdomen. So they are located in the lower abdominal area, one on each side. And each ovary, it has a size of about 2 to 4 centimeter in length, and it is connected to the wall of the pelvic region and also it is connected to the uterus by ligaments. And each ovary, so ligaments are thin fibrous materials which are capable of stretching and all that. So they are very important during the childbirth time. So you'll study about that later. And each ovary is covered by a thin layer of epithelium, and inside the thin layer of epithelium is presence of the ovarian stroma. So the stroma is again divided into two zones. One is a peripheral cortex zone and the other one is the inner medulla. Next, moving on to the oviduct. So what is the oviduct? It forms a connectivity between the ovary with that of the uterus, right? So talking about the oviduct. So you can see in this diagram, there are two ovaries present, right? Ovaries are present on either side of the pelvic region, and they are held to the pelvic region and to the uterus by muscle structures called as ligaments. So all that we have seen. So next, talking about the oviduct, which is a tube-like structure that carries the ova or the egg. So the oviducts are also called as the fallopian tubes. They are also called as fallopian tubes. So the oviducts, uterus and the vagina, all these forms the accessory ducts. Why they are called as duct is because they are tube-like. They allow the passage of something. They allow the passage of the sperm and all that. So that is why they are called as duct. They are tube-like. So we have the fallopian tube. Then there is presence of the vagina, which is also a duct-like structure, and the uterus. So this whole thing, the uterus, entire thing, all these are hollow. So that is why they call it as a duct. So they form the uterus, the oviduct, which is also called as the fallopian tube, and the vagina, they form the accessory duct of the female reproductive system. So let's study about the fallopian tube, because they are very, very important, because they are the ones which help the sperm to reach to the egg, and once the sperm fertilizes with the egg or the ova, again that egg or the ova, once it forms, it travels and settles itself in the that fertilized one which forms a zygote. It travels and settles in the uterus. For that, this particular fallopian tube is very, very important. So each fallopian tube is about 10 to 12 centimeters in length, and it extends from the periphery of each ovary to the uterus. If you can see here, from the periphery, from the side, the fallopian tube, from the ovary, it will extend up to the uterus, as you can see. So it is a duct, because it is a tube-like structure. And the part closer to the ovary is the funnel-shaped infundibulum. If you can see, in the fallopian tube, there is a funnel-shaped like structure, this part. And it has finger-like projections called fimbriae, and it looks like a funnel. It looks exactly like a funnel, right? So that is why it is called as infundibulum. So the part of the fallopian tube that is close to the ovary, as you can see, that is close to the ovary, it forms the infundibulum. Next, the edges of the infundibulum, as I told you, it has finger-like projections, and this finger-like projection is called as fimbriae, and this fimbriae actually helps in the collection of the ovum after ovulation. So from this ovary, what happens? The ovules will be present, right? The ova or the eggs will be produced. So those eggs have to be collected, and that collection is done by these finger-like projections called fimbriae that are a part of the infundibulum. So that is the function of the fimbriae. And the infundibulum, it continues and it leads to a wider part of the oviduct or the fallopian tube, which is called as the ampulla. So you can see here, they extend to a wider part, which is called as the ampulla. Next, they extend further to the isthmus. So the last part of the oviduct, which is called as the isthmus, it is quite narrow. It is a narrow lumen, and it joins the uterus. So as you can see here, this ampulla, it extends further to form a narrow tube-like structure which joins to the uterus. So this is the structure of the oviduct, that is the fallopian tube. Next, moving further, let us study about the uterus. Now, we came to know that the fallopian tube starts somewhere near the ovary and it extends up till the uterus. So, we shall study about uterus. So, the uterus is single. There is only one uterine cavity or uterus present, and it is called as the womb. Womb, because that is a region where the entire 9 months the fetal development will take place. It is called as the womb. And if you look at the shape of the uterus, you can see that it is the shape of pear fruit. So how a pear fruit looks, no? Exactly. Can you see here? Exactly like that the shape of the uterus looks like. It looks like a pear fruit. And it is supported by ligaments which is attached to the pelvic wall. I told you the ovary is also attached to the uterus and the pelvic wall by the ligaments, and therefore the uterus is attached to the pelvic wall by the ligaments. So ligaments play a very important role. They are the connective tissues. Ligaments are the connective tissue. Hence they are the connective tissues. Next, the uterus opens into the vagina through a narrow cervix. So it opens into the vaginal part, as you can see, through a narrow, very narrow cervic region, cervical canal, and then the vagina. It is through these vagina that the sperm enters. It travels through the isthmus, then the ampulla, then the infundibulum, and this ovary that produces the ova and passes it to the infundibulum. There the sperm and the ova or the egg will fertilize, and later on that which forms the zygote will travel and settle itself in the uterus. So that you will study in fertilization in the next coming sessions, fertilization and implantation topic of this particular chapter. So the cavity of the cervix is called as cervical canal, which along with vagina forms the birth canal. So it is also the birth canal. Why? Because the baby, once during parturition, what happens is after 9 months, the baby actually comes out through the vagina. So therefore, it is also called as the birth canal. So next, talking about the uterus in detail. So the uterus is again covered by 3 wall layers. So what are those? Let us look into. So the wall of the uterus has 3 layers of tissue. So the wall of the uterus has 3 layers of tissue, and that tissue is nothing but the membranous covering. It is formed of the external thin membrane, which is called as perimetrium. Peri means peripheral, outside. So it is perimetrium. Then the middle thick layer of smooth muscle, which is called as myometrium, and the inner glandular layer, which is called as endometrium, that lines the uterine cavity. So as you can see here, the outermost layer, it is the perimetrium. So this perimetrium is actually thin. It is thin. And the middle layer, it is thick, and it is called as the myometrium. Inner to the myometrium is the endometrium, and this endometrium is the one that lines the or covers the uterine cavity. So therefore, endometrium is the innermost layer of the uterus. And the endometrium, it undergoes cyclical changes. That is, when a woman has a menstrual cycle every month, it is this endometrium that actually sheds out of the body, mixing along with blood, and that blood along with the endometrial tissue leaves the body through the vagina. So that is nothing but the menstrual cycle that occurs every month in a woman. So the endometrium undergoes cyclical changes during menstrual cycle, while the myometrium is the one that exhibits strong contraction during delivery of the baby. So what is the function of the myometrium? That middle layer, which is very thick, that actually is the one that induces contraction so that the baby can be pushed out through the uterus into the cervical canal and then out through the vagina. So for the contraction to occur during the delivery of the baby, this myometrium is very, very important. So these are the 3 different layers of the uterus. So next, talking about the female external genital area. So the female external genitalia, it includes Mons Pubis, Labia Majora, Labia Minora, Hymen, and the clitoris. So what are these? Let us look into. So first, talking about Mons Pubis. So Mons Pubis is a cushion-like, very soft, fatty tissue. That is a cushion of fatty tissue, and that is the region which is covered by skin and the pubic hair. So it is called as the Mons Pubis. Next is the Labia Majora. So the Labia Majora, they are usually fleshy, as you can, Labia Minora, Labia Majora, as you can see. Now I am talking about Labia Majora. So the Labia Majora is usually this particular part that is there. It is usually fleshy in nature, and it is made up of fleshy fold of tissues. They are made up of fleshy fold of tissues, and these extend down from the Mons Pubis and surrounds the vaginal opening. So they are the ones that surround the vaginal opening. So the fatty tissue layer that is there, which it is called as the Mons Pubis, and the folds of tissues that are there which extend surrounding the vaginal canal or the vaginal opening is called as the Labia Majora. And the Labia Minora, as I have shown, they are the paired folds of the tissue under the Labia Majora. So you can see paired folds of tissues that are there. So this part, it forms the Labia Minora. So these are the different external genital, like how in the male the external genital was the penis, the testes and all that. Here also this Labia Majora, Labia Minora and the Mons Pubis forms the external genital area of the female reproductive system. And the opening of the vagina is often covered partially by a membrane, and that membrane is called as the hymen. And clitoris is also external genital structure. It is nothing but a tiny finger-like structure which lies exactly in the upper junction of the two labia minora and also above the urethral opening. So it is present above the urethral opening in between the two labia minora. And the hymen, so which is a membrane-like structure, it is often torn during the first intercourse or during the first coitus. So this is about the female reproductive system. So next, talking about one more female reproductive system, as I told you, mammary gland is also included in the female reproductive system. So let us study about the mammary gland, as this also comes under the female reproductive system. So functional mammary gland is one of the characteristic organ of the female mammals, because mammals are the ones that directly give birth to young one and they are capable of feeding the young one. So therefore, mammary gland is very important. And the mammary glands, they are paired structures and they are nothing but called as breast, because they are two in number and they contain glandular tissues and they contain lots of fat, also variable amounts of fat distributed in them. And the glandular tissue of each of these mammary gland is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. And inside the mammary lobes is present groups of cells which are called as alveoli. So just like how lungs have alveoli, these also have alveoli, and like how the testes have lobes inside them, these mammary glands also have lobe-like structures which are nothing but which contain 15 to 20 mammary lobes which contain groups of cells called as the alveoli. And the cells of the alveoli are very, very important because they are the ones that actually help in the secretion of the milk, and these milk that are secreted by the alveoli, they get stored in cavities or lumens of the alveoli. So that is how the milk secretion takes place. And the alveoli, then the milk that is secreted by the alveoli gets stored in the cavity or the lumen of the alveoli. Then the alveoli will open into the mammary tubules, and these tubules of each of the 25 or 30 lobes that are present, they join to form a mammary duct. And several mammary duct again joins to form a wider mammary ampulla which is connected to a lactiferous duct, and it is through this lactiferous duct that the milk is sucked out. So that is the function of the mammary gland. So you can see here lactiferous duct. So the milk is sucked out through the lactiferous duct, and then there is presence of, as you can see, there is presence of mammary lobes, then fat cells, unequal distribution of fat cells as I told you. Then there is presence of mammary alveoli structures, and these alveoli have small tubular structures. All these tubular structure connect to the lactiferous duct and they are called as the mammary duct, and then they also have the ampulla. So all these are the different structures of the female mammary gland, and this is how milk gets secreted through it. So this was about this session wherein we entirely studied about the structure of the male and the female reproductive system. Since we know the structure, it will be easy for us to understand how exactly the fertilization occurs, how menstruation occurs, what happens, how the fertilization occurs, how implantation occurs, and how the baby is delivered, how parturition, lactation, everything occurs. So when you study that, this is very, very important to know the structure of the male and the female reproductive system. So in the next coming session, we shall discuss about gametogenesis. Gametogenesis, wherein how the gametes are formed. So what are the gametes that are formed? The male gamete, which is the sperm, and the female gamete, which is the ova or the egg. And in that, we shall study about the formation of the male gamete, which is called as spermatogenesis, and the formation of the female gamete, which is called as oogenesis. So we shall meet again in the next session with these two topics. Thank you.